So, my guest on today's show, the Lewis Nichols Show, I'm really excited and looks like just in paradise right now, is Mr. Fred Rosser. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I always say don't die with the story and you tell it. So, however, I can share my story on any platform, I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm really excited because there's a lot that I want to talk to you about because you've done so
Sure.
much in a short amount of time. So, kind of for you, in regards to loving wrestling, did you love it growing up as a kid? Did you play it with your friends? Like,
I was born November 2nd, 1983. So, I've been a fan since I came out of my mom's womb. I grew up the only child. Yep. Been a fan since I came out the womb. I was the only child growing up, and I got into it through my dad. And Um, when I first saw it for the first time, I was hooked, and it was something that I wanted to do throughout junior high school, throughout high school, and then ultimately through high school and college. I took that step to join a wrestling school in West Paterson, New Jersey, a little small little garage where I got my training, and the rest was history. But yeah, since a kid, I've always wanted to do it. And, I played football and I did amateur wrestling just to, do the right thing and stay off the streets from doing wrong. Uh, but, I wasn't into football. I would always hit people late. I was always rough on the football field. And then all of a sudden these guys would want to fight me. And then I'd end up wrestling them and kicking them down in a side headlock. And everyone knew, oh, here goes Fred wrestling again. So it's been me since day one.
I don't think I'd like to play football with you by the sounds of it.
Oh, I was rough. I was rough. I was a rough kid growing up.
Who was your favorite wrestler growing up? Like, who did you used to watch and they kind of inspired you?
I was always a huge fan of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Shawn Michaels, and the reason being is, when they were down and out and they were like the underdog in the match, I was always rooting for them, and I would always love how the crowd would get behind them, and they would fight from up under, and they would have the people in the palm of their hands. So I just gravitated towards the good guys. I gravitated towards the guys that were, just fighting from up under, like Rocky Balboa. So getting to be able to work with Ricky Steamboat and Shawn Michaels years later was a dream come true.
And before just jumping over to your time in WWE, I wanted to go for the years prior to that and what it looked like. Wrestling on the independent scene. Like, was that a hard work? Because I know it's a lot of traveling as well.
Well, the difference between my story and someone like my tag team partner, Titus O'Neil, is Titus O'Neil went from playing, football to getting right into wrestling, getting signed with WWE. For me, it was a journey. My journey started September 11th, 2002, 1 year after 9/11. And I did the indies. I was what they call a weekend warrior. I was literally scooping ice cream during the week, running an ice cream store at Dairy Queen during the week, and then on the weekends I would wrestle. So I had to do what I had to do. I had to get those reps. That's something that I tell a lot of people that are looking to get into the business or that are already in the business starting off. You need to get those reps. Unfortunately, you need to stumble. You need to fall on your face. You need to, mess up in the ring to know what not to do next. So it was something, that I was hooked, and I wrestled in arenas with no shower and no toilet. I got the door shut in my face so many times with WWE, doing tryout after tryout after tryout, probably over 30, definitely close to 40 tryouts with WWE until I got that one yes. And that's what it took, that one yes. May 4th, 2009, out of 75 guys and girls from all over the world, I earned my contract with WWE. Nowadays, guys can get invited to the Performance Center in Orlando and try out. But when I tried out, I had to use my own money. I had to pay either $1,000 or $2,000 to try out with WWE because they wanted serious people only. And I had to do what I had to do. And the same day I got signed, May 4th, 2009, was the same day AJ Lee got signed. So You know, I had conquered I had conquered the wrestling world, in my opinion. I was on top of the world, but still, I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't myself. I wasn't my true, authentic self. And of course, we'll get into that.
I mean, with when you get knocked down, and you know, where do you find that strength to get back up? Is that something that's always been kind of installed into you when you were growing up? Did your family support you to kind of, like, when you fall down, you've got to get back up?
Well, I'm the only child, so mama didn't raise no fool. She was very tough, very tough. As a kid, I was a softie, you know. She would always say that when I played football when I was young, I didn't like getting hit. I disagree. She would always say that my uniform was always clean, it wasn't dirty. So she toughened me up big time. She was so tough that she would move all the furniture in the living room and put on boxing gloves. I'd put on boxing gloves and she would put on boxing gloves. And she would try to toughen me up and box me, box me. I share this story all the time and she laughs. And there was one time where I had just got sick of doing this boxing mess. And I gave her like a knee in the stomach and she doubled over and I went across her back, like wham, a double axe handle right to her back. And she realized that my son wants to be a professional wrestler.
I
And my family, what's that?
I say I tried that with my mum, and I was grounded for a month.
Uh, well, hey, tough love either way. But my parents supported me. I didn't tell my parents a year into my training at IWF, the wrestling school, Independent Wrestling Federation, the school that I originally started at. I didn't tell them a year into my training that I was training to be a wrestler. My mom said, "Okay, you have 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, you need to move on." Uh, from 2002 to 2009, I kept doing it, and it finally paid off.
And when it did, when you kind of got that contract, you know, at the WWE, what was your mum's reaction to that? Because essentially all those years of work had paid off.
Oh, she was happy. The one thing I can always say about my dad is that he always had a hot meal on the table for me. He's a quiet guy. He's an introvert. I'm an introvert, but I can socialize as an extrovert. And he'd always show up to my football games when I was a kid. He'd always show up to my independent wrestling matches when I never asked him to, but he would always show up in support. As a child, my mom was at the clubs, hanging out, dancing. So she wasn't around when I was a kid, but the roles have kind of reversed because at every speaking engagement, at every wrestling match that's big to me, she's always there. She'll fly out. I was born in New Jersey. My mom lives in New Jersey. I'm in LA. She'll fly out to LA to watch me wrestle. She'll fly out to Florida to watch me wrestle or speak about my Block the Hate movement. So she's my tag team partner. Literally, she's my tag team partner because a lot of people don't know, but from this interview, they'll know my mom is also gay. And I never came out to my mom until I was 28. She came out to me when I was like 8 years old. And, you know, when she came out to me, I said, you know, Mom, I don't care. I still love you. And people said, well, how come you never came out to your mom? Well, because science wasn't as strong as it is today. Science wasn't as strong as it is today. And, you know, no one wants to let their mom down. She would always say, oh, I can't wait to have grandchildren. I can't wait to have grandchildren. So I never told my mom until I was 28. But why I say that we're such a tag team partner is that anytime I speak, some parents will come up to her and say, well, how do I handle my son or daughter being gay? And simply, there are many ways you can handle it, but one of the best ways to handle it is just love them unconditionally. So my mom, she's my soundboard. She's my right-hand woman. She's my best friend and pain in the ass mom. And what a combination.
I mean, I was going to go on to that a little bit later, but I want to kind of, we'll talk about that now and go into the wrestling side later, because that was a big moment for you, having the courage to, whilst actively being signed to the WWE, to actually come out as gay. So talk us through how that happened. Did you speak to anyone else, with the wrestlers, and said, look, you know, I'm gay and I'm ready to tell people?
I was pretty, you know, backstage wrestling. It's like high school, you know, when someone finds something about you, it just spreads like wildfire. So the WWE locker room is like high school. But I never mentioned anything. I never said anything. I had girlfriends. There was a time when I got brought up to the main roster, and Mark Henry. At the time, I had blonde hair and I had a gold sequence around my head. And Mark Henry was in the locker room. He's very long-winded, and he was like, "Hey, boy, why you got your hair like that? It makes you look gay." And I just gasped. I'm like, yeah, I'm stumbling over my words. I'm like, Mark, I'm just trying to stand out. I'm just trying to be different. And then fast forward to when I came out and my story having a galvanizing effect on the wrestling and entertainment world. He was one of the first guys to call me up that summer. And he told me to come down to the hotel that we were all staying at during SummerSlam. He said, "Come down to the green room." And I came down to the green room and he gave me the biggest hug. And he said, "Man, how come you didn't tell me?" I said, "Mark, I was just fearful of the unknown." And I didn't think my story was a big deal at all until, of all people, Cher, the icon, reached out to me on Twitter in the DM. And she said, "I heard your story. And because of me hearing your story, one of my friends who's a big wrestling fan came up to his family." So she thanked me. And it was that minute I realized, wow, my story is a big deal. So I always say my fight is much more bigger than in the ring. It's outside of the ring, fighting bigotry and hatred and trying to be the voice of the voiceless when it comes to the LGBTQ community or anyone that gets bullied into silence. So from guys like Randy Orton, Big Show, Sheamus, Titus O'Neil, those guys made it that much easier for me to walk into a locker room. And CM Punk, I can't leave out CM Punk. That was when he wrestled Brock Lesnar, SummerSlam 2013, I believe. And I remember in LA at the Staples Center, after his match, he was all iced up from head to toe. And he came up to me in catering and he was all iced up. I'm sitting there watching the pay-per-view and he came right up to me in front of everyone and he said, "Stand up." I stood up and he gave me a hug. And he said, "It's very courageous for you to have come out. If you have any problems with anyone in the locker room, you let me know and I'll take care of it." And it blew me away because the first season of NXT, I'm a original NXT guy, and he was my coach. And we said maybe 2 words to one another. He was a little rough around the edges. So for him to say that
Yeah.
meant the world to me.
I know some people say, in this day and age, there shouldn't be a thing where you have to come out. But to put it into perspective, the industry that you're in, it's completely different. It's not like where an everyday person can come out and say you're gay. Because when you work with athletes, there's always that stereotype, like, oh, they're not cool with it. It's men wrestling, like they're not. So that must have been such a daunting thing to even do, especially being an active superstar. Did you ever feel like it could have a bad effect on your career in any state?
I never really thought about it. I was just fearful of how people would perceive me. Living in Miami when I came out, I had found love. I had found true love, and I was with my partner. I hate using the word partner. I was with my boyfriend, who him and I, Nikki, are still great friends. I was in love. Like I said earlier, I was at the top of the mountain achieving my dreams of being a WWE superstar, but I wasn't living my truthful self. And finding love in Miami, I sacrificed my career to inspire others to be and accept themselves. So ultimately, I wanted to be able to bring my boyfriend to red carpets. I wanted to be able to bring him backstage into the masculine world of professional wrestling. And I was able to do that. I'm not the first and I'm not the last, but I was definitely someone that said, "You know what, this is me, this is my boyfriend. And if you don't like it, you know what, you can kiss my arse."
And I mean, you just said there, you know, partner, and you use that word, and that stands out for me because I'm married, and you know, I'm gay as well. And if I'm out in, you know, in a club or something, and someone says, you know, have you got a girlfriend? I'll say, oh yeah, my partner's at home. I'll never say the word husband, and it's that weird. Even though I can't explain it, even though it's kind of, I know it's accepted, I don't fear anything. It's just that word for some
Yeah.
reason, husband, just feels a little bit odd. You know, I can't get to,
Partner,
yeah,
partner is like Titus O'Neil's my tag team partner.
yeah,
You know, my keto coach, he's my tag team partner, and health is wealth is my motto. I have to be proud, man. I have to
yeah.
stick my chest out and say, this is my boyfriend. This is my, whatever. But I prefer saying boyfriend. I prefer saying husband when I do get married. But yeah, the word partner, it's just like,
Yeah.
two words I don't like. I don't like partner and I don't like former. When people introduce me, former WWE superstar, I'm not former. I'm a veteran. I started my journey with WWE from 2003 to 2009 doing tryouts and extra work. And then from 2009 to 2017, I was signed with WWE. So I had a long, long career in wrestling and with WWE. So I call myself a veteran.
Did you ever, at any point with WWE, because that story it broke, you were on loads of different posters, social media posts. Did you ever feel like the poster guy? Did that ever cross your mind, or did you like the way they were going forward with it?
Well, you know, um, I was just happy. I remember Vince McMahon calling me up and saying how proud he was that I made that move to come out and be so courageous to say what I said. And he didn't want it to be a storyline. And I was cool
Yeah,
with it either way because I didn't have to do promos like this. I didn't have to deepen my voice to sound more masculine. I didn't have to do that anymore. I could be myself, being a part of such an incredible angle with the Nexus. I wasn't truthful to myself. Being a part of the original NXT, I just wasn't truthful. I was hiding. I was scared to talk. I was scared to cut promos. That's why being able to do these interviews, big or small, whether it's in front of 100 people or 10,000 people, this is still a lot of fun to be able to share my story. This is still a lot of fun to be able to wrestle because at the end of the day, I want people to see me on the big screen or on my social media and say, you know what, if he can do it, so can I. And I've had so many people, especially here in the States, in the South, where uh, being LGBTQ might look down upon. I've met so many transgender fans in the South than I've ever met anywhere in the world. And they come up to me and I don't know them, and they come up to me and they hug me and they share with me their coming out story and how much I had an effect on them. And that's what matters the most to me. Some of my biggest inspirations on social media are The Rock, Will Smith, Tom Hanks, Denzel Washington. Those are guys that I look up to. Those are guys that I study as to why they do what they do. And I just know it works with me too. I know someone is looking up to me. I know every time my feet touch the ground every morning, I know someone's counting on me to brighten up the day, especially in crazy times like this.
and I mean, in life, you might sometimes, you know, influence one or two people, but with you, you've changed people's lives from your strength and your courage. There's people now living a much happier life. There's people that are proud to be who they are. They're not hiding behind a character almost, and that's all down to you. So to live your life knowing that you've done that for so many people, that kind of must make you feel you've done something. You've had a purpose. You've gone out there, and thanks to you now, people are living the lives they should be.
Absolutely. I always say in my speaking engagements, what's worse? Tell me what's worse, accepting the fact that your son or daughter is gay or accepting the fact that you had buried them because they were gay. What's worse,
Yeah.
you not accepting your son or daughter not being gay and then they commit suicide, you know, come on, that's like a no brainer, accept them, love them unconditionally. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. That's why my whole block the hate movement is so important to me. I'm sorry I jump all over the place. So you got to be the one to keep us on track. But my whole Block the Hate movement is so important to me. You know, it's a movement I started with me being the first openly gay WWE superstar, but it's more than just an LGBTQ movement. It's a movement for anyone that gets bullied into silence. In this world, we all receive hate for various reasons, but in order to be strong and successful, we must block the hate. And you see me, I'm repping my Block the Hate shirt. It's the equality sign with my forearms. And, you know, not all superheroes wear capes. And I've got to be that superhero for the community or anyone that gets bullied. So, and I won't stop until I'm 6 feet under.
Superhero with pecs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know it.
Did you ever receive any, not hate as such, but were there some wrestlers that weren't cool with it? Because that's something that, you know, you'd always wonder.
Well, you know, social media being such a big thing, and cyberbullying being the #1 form of bullying, we all get it. I get it. But I always say, if they don't know you personally, don't take it personal. And I'll be honest with you. There were some people, I don't want to mention any names, but I'm going to be honest with you. There's some people that maybe stop shaking my hand, stop acknowledging me. But, you know, it is what it is. They're the ones that are battling with themselves. They're the ones that are, you know, not living their life truthfully and being accepting. I always say in a lot of my speaking engagements, when I talk to kids, you know, the word of the day is empathy, you know, having an understanding for one another, learning about different cultures, learning about different ethnicities. Empathy is so important, you know, whether you're Jewish, whether you're African American or Spanish, we're all one big melting pot, you know. So with my social media, I don't post for the thousands that might hate on me. I post for that one person that is inspired and something, a light bulb pops on in their head that, I can come out and I can be comfortable and I can be truthful and I can, look up to someone like Fred Rosser and be a part of his social media family, because that's what it's all about. You know, if people don't have anyone on their, if anyone doesn't have anyone in their family that accepts them and loves them, be a part of my family on social media. My Twitter, Instagram at Real Fred Rosser, RealFredRosser. Be a part of my family. I've talked to and I've met several fans that wanted to take their life, commit suicide. And I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I am a friend. And that's all I can do at the end of the day is, be the sun in someone's cloud. That's all I can do.
Do you know, talking to you is so inspirational. And the thing is, not only are you inspirational out of the ring and what you're doing, but in the ring, the stuff that you were doing there, you were having fans that followed you and they loved what you were doing. So going back to your time in Nexus, I mean, we had Heath Slater on the show and it was crazy because you guys came in with such an impact. And as a fan, everyone was like, okay, is this real? What's going on? It was that shock factor. And it was probably the first thing that shocked me as a fan for a long time. So when they came to you and said, look, this is the idea, this is what you're going to be doing, you're going to trash the whole place. What was your initial thoughts on that?
Oh, I was a nervous wreck. Again, I wasn't out publicly, so I was a nervous wreck. I wanted to be tough. I didn't want to mess up. And Vince McMahon said that, he said, if anything looks fake, if anything doesn't look real, you're going to be fired, So we were fearful.
Wow. We
had to deliver. And out of all the guys, I talked to everyone from the group. We're still to this day, 10 years later, we're in a text thread, so we'll send each other nasty GIFs, just nasty stuff, just to stay in contact. But out of all the guys, I still religiously stay in contact with Heath Slater. He's my boy. I love him to death. We've gotten into so much trouble, so much good trouble. From setting off fire alarms to hiding under bleachers We have done it all, Heath Slater and I. And it's funny, I have a podcast myself that's like therapy thing. And he's someone that I need to have on to be able to share our stories and all that other good stuff. But yeah, doing the Nexus, was a lot of fun. I just wish we would have just ran over Team WWE during
Yeah.
SummerSlam. So that's something that even Chris Jericho says that the Nexus should have went over, because that's how you build talent. Once we lost at SummerSlam, no one's going to take us seriously, and it's tough. Being on the original NXT where they were doing obstacle courses and talk to talk challenge, it was a nightmare. If I would have debuted on the NXT, what it is today, it would have been off the hook. But the original NXT doing all those obstacles and this and that, it was a nightmare. And if I can't juggle, and if I have to do something where I'm juggling, I'm not going to take myself seriously. And it just takes that much longer for people to get invested in you again. So, those are experiences that I'll never forget. And those are experiences that I always share with the world, with the masses. But definitely, if I would have debuted on NXT now, it would have been such an amazing experience.
Do you see a reunion for Nexus? Because with you all grown up now, it just feels, I know Heath said the same, it just feels right that you guys would come back together. And I think especially whether it's on the Indies or AEW or WWE, it would just work.
Well, I think it was going to happen before this pandemic because I had got a call from WWE probably saying if I was interested in coming back for WrestleMania Access, and to do stuff with the network. And I was down. I was definitely down to do it. And then the pandemic happened, and then I got the call that we were canceling all access and all stuff involving fans. So, I'm a grown man, and I was just devastated. Yeah. I was upset because when you get involved, it's a political game, People are talking to you like, oh, do you miss WWE? Are you looking to come back? And I was ready to talk to the masses with WWE. I was ready to share with them that, hey, guys, I just came off my first ever musical. I was involved in New York doing an off-Broadway musical about marriage equality where I was singing, dancing, and acting. And I'm honestly the first WWE superstar to go from wrestling to off-Broadway musical. And that's something I'm very proud of. And I've got highlights all over my social media. So I was ready to share with everyone my story, because when you're backstage with WWE, it gets overwhelming because from the production to the talent, hundreds of people are coming up to you with the same question. How's everything going? What have you been up to? And I was ready to share with them my experience doing off-Broadway musical that I would absolutely positively do again. So yes, I was bummed that we weren't able to do the Nexus or NXT reunion at WrestleMania. But actually June 2nd, 7:45 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be on WWE's show The Bump, talking about our old Nexus days. So same thing I'm doing with you, I'll be sharing with them. So I'm excited about that.
And obviously, it was only weeks ago that we saw this mass kind of people getting let go from their contracts. And you've been there yourself where you were let go. So going back to that time, when you found out, you were no longer working there, how did you feel? And did you expect it?
I always say Michael Jordan can't play forever. I'm not saying that I'm Michael Jordan, but, you can't play in the major leagues forever. Nothing lasts forever. And I had just came back from an injury, my elbow, Tommy John surgery. And it's very uncommon in wrestling to have that Tommy John surgery. But I came back August 20. I had moved out to LA full time August 2017. And during that time I was hurt, and I just felt it. I just felt in my heart, I think this could be the end. And August 2017, I moved out to LA full time to pursue other projects. And October 2017, 3 days before my birthday, I got released by WWE. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday morning, 11 a.m. got a call from Mark Carano, rose out of bed. I was still in bed too, which is unusual. I rose out of bed like the Undertaker, and I got the call, and I said, all right, hey, I'm out here in LA making moves anyway. So I was ahead of the game. So I wasn't really upset. I was more upset that months later after my release, WWE had finally embraced the LGBTQ movement, but they did it on a good friend of mine, a good ally. They did it with Finn Balor at WrestleMania in the opening match, where they really embraced the LGBTQ colors. So I remember that Monday after that WrestleMania, I cried and cried. At the time, I was, I don't know, 34, 34, 35, maybe 35. I cried and cried and cried and sobbed like a baby because I had came out. WWE didn't want to really embrace the LGBTQ movement on television, which I was perfectly fine with as long as I could be myself and do my community service work for the community. I was cool with it. But for them to finally embrace the movement with Finn Balor on a incredible ally, I was devastated, devastated. But you know, one monkey don't stop no show. I have to keep it moving. I have to keep pushing forward. I fall down 7 times, I get back up 8 times. So that's one thing that hurt me, and that's something I always share with everyone because it's the truth. You know, I could, before I do these interviews, I could have stuff written up and stuff like that, but I can't talk from my head. I gotta talk from my heart.
And you know, I totally understand why you felt like that, because for you, it wasn't something that you were doing to show support. You've lived, you've breathed this, you've gone through this for your entire life. So there'd be no one better to really go out there and do that and be the man that people see that's flying the flag for them essentially. So I totally understand.
Yeah, you know, being the first openly gay WWE superstar, I've been able to pave the way for other LGBTQ athletes to come out and be and accept themselves. Also, by being the first WWE superstar to come out publicly, I've instilled I've instilled in other LGBTQ athletes that they have a duty to, you know, help our youth and to instill confidence in our youth and to lead by example. So with guys like Jake Atlas, Sonny Kiss, Paro, many other LGBTQ superstars, I made it that much easier for them to come out and live their truth. And they've all said that. They've all said that that my story helped them come out and made it that much easier for them to really embrace their true self.
I wanted to kind of go through some more moments in your career, just kind of get your thoughts on them. And obviously, one of those being primetime players with Titus. And I wanted to know how that actually came about. Was it something that you guys had a chemistry and the creative team, you know, saw that?
Well, let me just say, when Titus O'Neil first joined WWE, this was when we were all at the FCW Florida Championship Wrestling Performance Center in Tampa, Florida. And when he first walked in the door, he was already signed. And I remember a couple weeks later, he had gotten into a big fight with this one wrestler, Lennox McEnroe, because the one guy, Lennox McEnroe, had experience in the ring, but he was kind of not hazing another superstar, but he was just kind of like, you know, you know, just just being like how a locker room is, just being tough on a guy. And I remember Titus O'Neil getting into a fight with him, and I said to myself, I'm staying far away from Titus O'Neil. And then fast forward to his training, I was the only guy that would work out with him. No one wanted to work out with him. I was the first one there, last one to leave, showing Titus that you're 6'4", 270 pounds. You don't need to do that much, you know? So I helped him out so much in the ring, and he'll co-sign to what I'm saying. So fast forward to when I got brought up to the main roster, and then he got brought up to the main roster. We would always be backstage, and I'm a quiet guy. Titus is loud, and Titus is just Titus, you know? So Vince McMahon saw us always together, and he took a liking to us. And I always say a lot of what goes on backstage comes to light on TV. And Vince saw something in us, and then eventually John Laurinaitis signed us to SmackDown, and we were off and rolling with the primetime players, making moves, making $1 million moves, and it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. I was part of Nexus. I was part of a tag team with Titus O'Neil, and then I ultimately moved on to make Darren Young great again with Bob Backlund. But Titus, we still stay in contact. People say, "Oh, do you guys still stay in contact?" I say, "Why wouldn't we?"
Yeah.
But yeah, Titus is my boy.
What for you during that time as the tag team? What's your standout moment? Something that you'll always remember and it will have a kind of a big place in your heart.
I mean, of course, winning the tag team
Yeah.
championships at Money in the Bank. And people ask, people always say, "Oh, I wish you would have won the championships more." Yeah, that would have been cool, but whether it's one time he won the championship titles or 10 times or 5 times, we still did it, and it's something I'm very proud about. And I was already out, so being the first openly gay WWE superstar to win a championship title meant the world to me. So whether I did it 1 time, 5 times, 10 times, I did it, and it's something I'm very, very, very proud of.
And you mentioned there as well, obviously, make Darren Young great again. So how that was just, I can't imagine how it even came about. What creative guy was like, right, Bob Backlund, Darren Young together. There we go. We got a storyline. So when they came to you and said, look, this is what we're doing, were you kind of like, okay, I don't understand?
I got to correct you on that, because years ago, I have done many, many appearances with Bob Backlund. And when I do autograph signings, I don't like standing up because, I don't like sitting. I'm sorry. I don't like sitting because it's just lazy and I get stiff and tight, and people want pictures. You got to stand up, sit down, stand up,
Yeah.
sit down. So I like doing my autograph signings standing up. I like to get personal with the people, and that's how Bob Backlund is. He likes to engage and stand up and get personal with the people. And he's very over the top, and I'm very reserved. And that whole saying opposites attract, like charges repel, that was very true to Bob and I. So I said to myself, well, again, sometimes tag teams break up and make up and break up and make up. So, I got to have a plan B after I'm done teaming with Titus. So I envision myself having somewhat of a life coach. And I took the idea from Mike Tyson and his former trainer, Cuss. And I said, Bob Backlund would be a really cool life coach. So I wrote up storylines with Bob and I had visuals of Mike Tyson and his trainer Cuss and Bob Backlund and I together. So I had it all written out, and I had visuals, and I proposed it to Vince McMahon, me one-on-one with Vince. And I always say the most intimidating thing about Vince McMahon is his office door. Once you get through his office door and have a game plan, he always said nervous people don't draw money. So once I got through that door and had a game plan, I remember it like it was yesterday. I talked to him for 20 minutes, and we talked about yoga, because he would always say, man, how do you get such a big chest like that? I said, yoga. He said, really, yoga? So we talked for almost 20 minutes about yoga. And I proposed the idea to him, me, not the writing team, me. And he loved it. He contacted Bob Backlund personally and said, would you want to do this life coach with Darren Young, Fred Rosser? And he was down. And we were off and rolling with vignettes and doing our thing. And like I said, I was part of a group called the Nexus. I was part of a tag team called the Primetime Players. I was finally, I hate using wrestling terms, but I was finally getting over with the crowd by myself with Bob Backlund. It's just unfortunate the people that work under Vince McMahon didn't have my back, and they have their own agenda because it wasn't their idea. If it was their idea, then it would get over even more. It would get the machine behind it and going if it was their idea. But it was me, myself, and I's idea. And Vince loved it, and we ran with it, and I had so much fun. And I still do throwbacks or flashbacks to when I made The Miz. Miz was my last feud in WWE for the Intercontinental Championship. And we had a match on SmackDown, and I signaled for the crossface chicken wing, and the people erupted, and I made them tap out. And I was like, wow, I'm finally doing it by myself. And like I said, it's just unfortunate the people that work under Vince McMahon didn't have my back. And then I was told I couldn't use the crossface chicken wing because it was a dangerous hold. And I promised, I said, don't worry, I'll do it fine. I won't hurt anyone doing it. And I was told not to do it. I was told to do the Cobra Clutch. And the person that would use the Cobra Clutch was Sergeant Slaughter. And I said to myself, man, if I wanted Sergeant Slaughter as my life coach, I would have had him as my life coach, you know. Being with Bob Backlund, I've got to do the crossface chicken wing, and I was told not to do it. And then fast forward, I remember one time on a live event, Miz came up to me and said, you know, I don't watch NXT, but I was watching it one night, and you wouldn't believe it. I saw Asuka using the crossface chicken wing, the Asuka lock, and I said I knew it. I knew that they were saving the hold for Asuka, and it broke my heart, man. It broke my heart.
Why do you think you didn't get the support for you? Because it sounds like you had a really good relationship with Vince McMahon, you know, from his support with you coming out and the fact that you could go to him with ideas. So, you know, with you having such a good relationship with Vince, why do you think the people underneath him didn't, you know, work with you or didn't support you as much as they should have?
Well, it wasn't their idea. They had their
Right.
own ideas. They had their own agenda. And, you know, Vince is still running the company, but there's also Triple H, you know, that has his NXT and that he has his agenda. So I wasn't a Triple H guy. I was a Vince McMahon guy. So anytime I had ideas, I don't go to the writers because they just, you know, they don't try. You know, they're yes men. That yes boss. They're I say they're do boys. Do this, do that. Copy this, copy that. You know. Um, if I want to get answers, I'm going to go to the boss, Vince McMahon. And like I said, I'll never have a bad thing to say about Vince McMahon because he gave me opportunities. He gave me shots that no one else would have given me.
And what was your relationship like with Triple H? Because he seems to be someone that understands wrestlers because he's been there, he's done it, and he just seems to really have this knack of bringing us something new and fresh. So did you guys work well together? Did you have a close relationship?
Well, in my room in New Jersey at my parents' house, I still have the posters up of Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, Hulk Hogan, and Triple H in my
Wow.
old room at home. So those are some of my favorites. So being able to work with some of my favorites meant the world to me. But unfortunately, it was Triple H that said I couldn't use the crossface chicken wing, and it broke my heart. I remember after my match at Battleground with The Miz, I came to the back and I was in the corner crying my eyes out. And Triple H said, you know, come on, why are you crying? And I said, I'm just devastated because, you know, the people aren't going to take me seriously anymore. I'm putting on the Cobra Clutch, and people are going to say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Why is he putting on the Cobra Clutch and he's with Bob Backlund? You know, the people aren't going to take me seriously. So I was devastated. So it is what it is. You know, you either adapt or perish. That's his saying. That's his motto. Literally, you either adapt or perish. So at the end of the day, who's going to be running the company? It's going to be Triple H. And unfortunately, I wasn't a Triple H guy, but he was my favorite.
Do you, with Triple H running it, because you know what fans are like now. Everyone has an opinion on who's best for business and this and that. So, in your opinion, do you think he'll do a good job if he was to take over running the company?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not going to be one of those veterans, even though I am a veteran. I'm not going to be one of those grizzled veterans that, oh, this is bad. This is bad. That guy Keith
yeah.
Lee, he's 300 pounds. He shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be doing that. Why not? If you can do a moonsault, if you can do athletic stuff and make it look good. Now, granted, if you're doing stuff like that and you're still wrestling at in your 50s or late 40s, you've got to be doing that because that's what people are going to expect from you. But if you can do moonsaults and stuff like that, Chris Jericho's almost 50 and he's still wrestling. He's still flipping around and yeah, he's still flipping around and stuff like that. If you can do it, do it. But yeah.
What are your thoughts on AEW? Because it's kind of exciting right now. You know, you've got the NXT AEW ratings wars, and it's a great product. It's something different for us. So, what are your thoughts? Do you watch it? Are you a fan? Have you had any contact about maybe going there?
Whether it's AEW, WWE, Impact, ROH, NWA, New Japan, it's a great time to be in the wrestling business. And I say to my fans and to everyone watching this, don't get caught on it's them versus us. You know, watch it all, love it all. You know, I've been in the business. I've been a fan, so I love it all. I'm still a fan. Superstars that I have on my podcast, I get giddy. I get giddy having them on the podcast just like a fan, you know, and I've been in the business. So I love it all. I embrace it all. My goal is to go to Japan because I've wrestled all over the world. I've never wrestled anywhere in Asia. So that is my goal. That is on the bucket list. And I've still got a lot left in the tank. I've reached out to AEW, Brandy Rhodes. At the time, they didn't have anything for me. I can reach out to them again, which I will do, because again, you know, times are changing and the squeaky wheel gets the oil, I always say. So you have to be forward. You have to give it a shot. And, you know, I will definitely reach out to them again. But my ultimate goal is to go to Japan, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to thrive. I'm going to thrive like no other.
It's really nice to see because talking to you now, you can just that passion and the fact that you've just got this ambition to go out there and then keep being you, keep being fresh. And I feel that, and I'm really excited for for what's next for you. And I kind of want to talk about what you're doing now because we were talking before we did the interview, and a lot of stuff you put on your Instagram stories is really good because the people are trying to get fit and they want something that they can trust. You told me that anything you put on there, you use, you believe, and there's research behind it. So tell us a little bit about what you do with fitness.
Yeah, I feel guilty if I'm gonna be posting something that I'm not using or I don't believe in, because again, I always say my social media is an open diary to the world. You'll get people saying, "Oh, I need a break from social media. I need a break from it. I need a break from it." Yeah, have your break, but I post to inspire, I post to impact, I post to motivate. So on top of the wrestling and my speaking engagements about bullying with the Block the Hate movement, I've got my little side hustles. I'm drinking my ketones, and I always say health as well. And it's something at 36. It's like, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same results. And as an athlete, it gets very tough to switch up your supplementation. It gets very tough to try new things out. But at 36, I'm like, man, give it a shot. So with the ketones, the exogenous ketones, sorry, I dabbled into it last May, and September I went hardcore with it, and I've reaped the benefits: mental clarity, inflammation, fat loss. And when I'm ingesting the ketones, I can get into ketosis a lot quicker, and I don't rob myself of carbs. I don't have a bunch of carbs, but I can cheat a little bit. I can have a cake, I can have this and that, and by consuming the ketones, it just puts me into ketosis a lot quicker, and burning fat. And I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting. I fast since the pandemic. I've been fasting 20 hours a day, and then I have a 4-hour window gap to eat, and it just works well for me. I'm more alert. My body fat is down dramatically, and during that window of eating, again, I can cheat a little bit and have some fun. I don't believe in a diet. A diet is something that no one sticks to, not even me. And anything with the word die in it, no good, no good. It's a lifestyle. So I always say, don't cheat yourself, treat yourself. So after we're done talking, I'm going to get my power hour in. I'm going to do some more of my side hustles via social media, and then I'm going to eat.
You know what I love? During this interview, you've got so many of your own catchphrases, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I just, yeah, I do all these interviews, and I'm just very
Yeah.
passionate in what I'm saying, and I believe in what I'm saying. So yeah, I've got my routine.
I got to say, talking to you today has been brilliant because the story and the fact that you've touched so many people and just talking to you, you're such a humble guy. And I think, talking about growing up and wanting to be a wrestler, it's fair to say you've done your family proud because, you've grown up in your, 36 and you've done so much for other people. And, you've done that at 36 and you've got all these years left to keep inspiring people and helping. So it's been really humbling to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. I'm definitely not done yet. I still have a lot left in the tank when it comes to wrestling and when it comes to sharing my stories about health and exogenous ketones and, living a healthy lifestyle that is sustainable. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about. I'm not looking for a quick diet. I don't want to, you know, tell anyone to get on a diet. We want something that is sustainable. First of all, I'm not gonna deprive myself of sweets and what I love to eat, and I definitely don't want to deprive anyone else of whatever they like. Moderation is key, and consuming ketones is definitely where it's at. And anyone that's watching this, definitely, if you're interested in ketones, definitely DM me and give it a shot. If you don't like it, don't do it. But I can promise you that saying what works for me might not work for you. I can promise you it'll definitely benefit you.
And just very quickly, because I know a lot of people watching this will want to know more in regards to your story and how you help other people. So, how can people listen to your podcast? And I know you mentioned your Twitter name and Instagram, but how can they listen to your podcast?
Sure, yeah, of course, Twitter, Instagram at Real Fred Roster, but my podcast is available on YouTube and iTunes, Pro and Bro Wrestling Podcast. I actually do it with my real life neighbor, Arnold Telegarta, who's a big wrestling fan. I met him when I first moved to LA, and he's a big wrestling fan, and he's like one of those fans that he likes to see. Uh, he's not very opinionated. He does have his opinion, but he likes to see the best in both sides. Like
Yeah,
he's not saying, oh, this pandemic, no fans. I'm not gonna watch it anymore. I'm not gonna. He sees the best in everything. And with the podcast, Pro and Bro Wrestling Podcast, and Pro and Bro Wrestling is the Instagram you can go to get all the information. Pro and Bro Wrestling. And it's like therapy for me. We're coming up on over a year of doing the podcast, and it's like therapy for me. He's like my real life therapist. Every week we do it. I'm human. Sorry, I'm just trying to say I'm human. I get down and out, and talking to him every week, every day. Sometimes he's like my therapist. He's like my therapist. So it's great to have him in my life, and it's great to be able to do a podcast where we can share our thoughts on the business. And like I said, I always say, don't die with the story and you tell it. Some of our most recent guests that we've had Deanna Perrazzo, who was a NXT Women's Superstar, who recently got released, and I had her on the podcast. And what was different about doing the podcast with her, she hadn't been interviewed by any wrestlers. They were just people that weren't in the business. And I said from the start of the podcast with Deanna Perrazzo, if anyone that's listening to this, if you think I'm going to talk about her release, you might as well just stop, listening to the podcast, because I don't want to know about the release. I want to get to know Deanna. What are her goals? What's her favorite movie? I want to get to know her. And that's what the podcast is all about. I'm not trying to get the shock and awe. Typically, and she even said it, typically when she does the interviews, a lot of people don't have that experience. in the business. So they want to focus on the release. But with her, I've had Titus, Kalisto. I'm definitely going to reach out to all the members of the Nexus to be a part of my podcast and just share your story, you know, because again, I always say it daily, don't die with the story and you tell it.
No, honestly, thank you so much for joining me. And it's just nice to get to know you, and the fact that, you know, growing up, that, you know, you always wanted to be a wrestler, the relationship with your mum, that just sounds amazing. And just the fact that whenever you fall over, like you said, you take, you know, fall down 7 times, get up 8 times, you've got that strength, which I think is inspiring. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
And also, if I wasn't a wrestler, I would have been a firefighter. That's some question that a lot of people ask me. Well, if you weren't a wrestler, what would you have been? A firefighter. So there you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the time to share.